What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to share with you three like-type envelopes, meaning the fact that they all share one thing in common. And I opened them up before I shot the video. I decided to do that this time only because I was trying to find a way to combine all three of these autographs together. So with that being said, the first person that we're going to take a look at today, and this is postmarked from California, and that is former Team USA softball outfielder Jessica Mendoza, and now current announcer on ESPN. You guys can commonly hear her during ESPN baseball games. Baseball Tonight, I think, is where she started out originally a few years ago. But she is a pioneer, so to speak, in the booth for ESPN. The common theme of this video is these are all going to be pioneering women in sports, meaning that all three of the women that I'm going to feature in this video have all done something or been the first to ever do something in their sports. And with Jessica Mendoza, she's the first to ever be a female announcer on ESPN, which is pretty cool. So let me give you a brief introduction of Jessica Mendoza. As you can see, she signed 2 cards for me through the mail. Jessica Mendoza, California native, played high school softball. She was an outfielder and later moved on to Stanford University, where she played 4 years of women's softball at Stanford. While she was at Stanford, she set many offensive records that still stand to this day. In 2019, she had a combined total of 50 career home runs while playing 4 years at Stanford University. In her 4 years at Stanford, Mendoza currently holds the career records in batting average, hits, home runs, slugging percentage, runs, and stolen bases. Her career doubles rank 5th in the NCAA all-time, and triples and RBIs and walks are in the top 10 of NCAA softball history. So after her collegiate career, she joined Team USA women's softball. She was on the 2004 Team USA team that was in Athens, and that team did indeed win the gold medal that year. She also reprised this role in 2008 for Team USA. However, in Beijing, Team USA women's softball only won the silver medal and not the gold medal that year. During and after her time on Team USA women's softball, she also played professionally in the National Pro Fast Pitch League. She also played for the USSSA Pride, which is an independent professional softball team based in Florida. They are in the professional softball circuit. It's just they're considered an independent. They don't really have a league that they're affiliated with. According to her Wikipedia page, she began working on ESPN's Baseball Tonight in 2014. On June 16, 2015, she became the first female broadcaster in the booth at ESPN's College World Series. On August 24th of that same year, she became the first female commentator for an MLB game in history during a game between the St. Louis Cardinals and Arizona Diamondbacks. In January of 2016, it was announced that she would then become a full-time announcer with the Sunday Night Baseball broadcast team. Another interesting thing is in addition to her role as an announcer with ESPN, on March 5th, 2019, the New York Mets announced that Mendoza is joining the club in a baseball operations advisory role. So I'm not really sure what that role is with the New York Mets. However, she is now employed by the New York Mets as well. Very happy to add her autograph to my collection. Again, a pioneer in the sport. I think it's so awesome that in my lifetime I get to see the first ever female announcer of a baseball game. I just think that is so cool. And I'm very happy to have her autograph in my collection. Thank you very much, Miss Mendoza. All right, so this next autograph is from one of the greatest college basketball players in women's basketball history. It's postmarked from Connecticut. And the individual that I'm talking about is former UConn Husky great Rebecca Lobo on 1, 2, and 3 signed cards from during her days as a UConn Husky. So Rebecca Lobo, why is she a pioneer in the sport? Well, to start, she was kind of one of the first faces of the Women's National Basketball Association. So I categorize her as a pioneer of the sport for that simple reason, that she was one of the images of the WNBA in the 90s. Second, another reason that she's important to women's basketball was that she played on probably, if not, I mean, it's hard to argue that it wasn't, the greatest team in college basketball history. And that was the 1995 national champion UConn Huskies that had a perfect 35-0 season, and of course winning the national championship. Now, you can't do much better than 35-0 for a record. So let's talk a little bit about Rebecca. Rebecca was born in Connecticut. She stands, during her playing days, she was 6'4" tall, so she primarily was a center throughout college and as a pro. She had, as you can imagine, numerous offers from around the country to play, college basketball. However, she chose to stay in her home state and play for the University of Connecticut. Even though she was born in Connecticut, according to her Wikipedia page, she played her high school basketball in Massachusetts. So she was living in Massachusetts, obviously, at the time, or at least going to school there, despite being born in Hartford, Connecticut. After her prolific, we'll call it, collegiate career, Rebecca was part of the 1996 United States Olympic gold medal team that competed in Atlanta. I've shown other videos of some other members of that team, so you're more than happy to check those out in another video. I'll link it at the end of this video if that interests you. But after her collegiate career and winning the Olympics, she was selected in the WNBA. She was in the first season of the WNBA, the inaugural season of the league, and she was assigned to the New York Liberty during the league's first player draft. They did not win the finals that year, the New York Liberty. They actually lost to the Houston Comets. However, she would persevere through that, and she would be a mainstay with the New York Liberty from 1997 to 2001. Then, ironically, in 2002, she would go to the Houston Comets. Then in 2003, she would join the Connecticut Sun in her home state. So, after the 2003 season, she did retire from the WNBA. However, after she started her own career, not her own career, but she started announcing and broadcasting, and you'll very commonly, if you watch the women's NCAA tournament, you very commonly will see her as a sideline reporter or behind the desk at women's college basketball games. Finally, in 2017, she was elected to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. But previous to that, in 2010, she was elected to the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, which is a no-brainer, of course. Again, I want to thank Miss Lobo for signing these through the mail for me, and I'm very happy to add another WNBA Hall of Fame great to my collection. This final person, this is postmarked from California, and this is one of the most exciting autographs that I've received in a while, and I'm going to give you a brief history on this person in a second. But she literally is like the pioneer of women's basketball. I mean, there have been others around this era, but when I show you this person, she moved so many barriers for women's basketball that it is just amazing that this individual doesn't have more notoriety than she does. But that tells you about the character of who this person is. She's not somebody that, you know, expects the attention that she very well deserves, in my opinion. And who am I talking about, do you ask? None other than UCLA great Ann Meyers on 1, 2, and 3 signed cards. So, who is Ann Meyers? And why is she so important to women's basketball? Well, first, I'm going to mention that Ms. Meyers was married to the late Don Drysdale. And Don Drysdale, if many of you don't know, was one of the best pitchers in Los Angeles Dodgers history and Brooklyn Dodgers history. And unfortunately, he passed away quite a while ago. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to refer to her as Ann Meyers, even though she does go by Ann Meyers-Drysdale still to this day. She signed her cards just simply Ann Meyers. However, I have seen other people that have gotten her autograph before in the mail with items that say Ann Meyers-Drysdale. She writes her entire name, Ann Meyers-Drysdale, on those. But I guess because these cards only refer to her as Ann Meyers, she only signed them Ann Meyers, which makes total sense. So let's talk about her early part of her career, why she is so important to the sport of women's basketball. Ann Meyers grew up in California. She had 10 siblings, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, that right there is almost a 5-on-5 basketball game right there, but just with the kids going. Her older brother actually played in the NBA, and his name was Dave Meyers, and he not only went to go play for UCLA, but he also played for the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA. Well, she attended high school, and she was a top recruit coming out of high school. Her entire high school career, her high school went 80 wins and 5 losses during her high school career. She became actually the first high school student to be on the women's U.S. national basketball team before she set foot into college. Obviously, you can imagine that she had many offers to go anywhere she wanted to play basketball, but she chose to go to the historic UCLA, which was more known at the time for its men's program with the likes of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, Gail Goodrich, on down the list. So Ann Meyers came to that college under Billy Moore, and she came to that program to make it even more competitive than it already was. So one of the things, I'm not going to talk too much about her collegiate career, but there's a few things I want to touch on that she was probably, if not the best college player in the game as well. And this is one of the first pioneering things that she did, was that she was the first Division I college basketball athlete to record a quadruple double in a game. Think about that. In the history of college basketball at the Division I level, Ann Meyers was the first to record a quadruple double. And that is something that's amazing with the history of how many great college basketball players there were previous to Ann Meyers. You're thinking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you're thinking Pete Maravich, you're thinking Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, on down the list. Ann Meyers was the first to accomplish this feat. So that's amazing in itself. She played, as I mentioned, as a high schooler on the gold medal teams. She was on the Pan American gold medal winning team in 1975 as a high schooler. After her highly successful collegiate career, she was the first player drafted in the Women's Professional Basketball League. The Women's Professional Basketball League only lasted about 3 seasons, and she played for the New Jersey Gems. Later, that league folded. However, in 1980, this is the second, I guess the third, if you want to count being drafted in the Women's Professional Basketball League, is the first drafted ever. But this is the third thing that she is a pioneer for. She was offered a contract to play with the Indiana Pacers in 1980, meaning she had a tryout to play in the NBA. Unfortunately, things didn't work out and she wasn't chosen to be on the finalized roster of the Indiana Pacers. However, just the fact that she was offered a contract and had the opportunity to be in training camp with the Pacers is amazing in itself. Now, as I mentioned with Rebecca Lobo in the previous, when we were talking about Rebecca, the WNBA didn't exist until 1997. So Ann played during an era that there was no professional basketball team except from 1978 to 81. So that led her to going, in a different direction with her career. She got into broadcasting. So the fourth thing that Ann did was she became the first woman to do color commentary for the Indiana Pacers, the first ever time that happened in the NBA. After her time with the Pacers, she moved on to the Phoenix Suns. She worked for them in different capacities. She worked for them in broadcasting, but she also worked for them in the front office until, I want to say, most recently, actually, I want to say in the last couple of years, she finally retired from basketball and retired from working with the Phoenix Suns and now is, residing in California, her native California. So, in closing, I want to say that this was probably one of the most exciting videos I've shot in a while, being able to add autographs from 3 pioneers in women's sports. All 3 of these women are so important to their sports respectively. Jessica Mendoza really helped put women's softball on the map. There are many great women's softball players out there. I don't want to give Jessica complete credit for making it a popular sport because there are so many other great female athletes that made women's softball recognizable. Rebecca Lobo made the WNBA recognizable. Again, with so many other faces of the WNBA, women's college basketball, she was so important to the game in the 1990s. And before that, Ann Meyers was so big and important to women's basketball. What she did for UCLA women's basketball and NCAA basketball as a whole can never be duplicated again because she was the one that put a lot of that burden on her back. So, in closing, thank you for taking the time. This video was a little bit longer, but I think it's so important to recognize these 3 great female athletes for all their career accomplishments and so many more things that they may accomplish post-playing career. So, thanks for your time. I look forward to your comments below and happy collecting.